She thought her arrogance gave her the right to mock a royal guard, crossing boundaries, literally and figuratively. But when her actions led to public humiliation and the guard's calm yet commanding response left the crowd stunned, karma struck harder than she ever imagined. Let's begin. It was a picturesque afternoon at Buckingham Palace. Tourists gathered in droves, their cameras clicking incessantly as the stoic royal guard stood at his post. His polished boots and iconic red tunic made him a symbol of unwavering tradition and duty. Amid the crowd, a loud voice rang out. A young woman, dressed in a flashy outfit and clutching her phone, approached with an air of entitlement. Her sunglasses perched high on her head, she smirked as she zeroed in on the guard. "Hey, Mr. Fancy Hat," she called out, her voice dripping with mockery. "Do you ever smile, or are you too busy being all royal and serious?" She waved her hand near his face, making exaggerated gestures. The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. The guard stood motionless, his disciplined gaze fixed straight ahead. The woman wasn't deterred. She pulled out her phone and began recording. "Let's see if the statue moves," she said, stepping closer. She crossed the white boundary line without a second thought, ignoring the murmurs of disapproval from the onlookers. Encouraged by the guard's lack of reaction, the woman's antics grew bolder. She leaned in, pretending to inspect his uniform. "What's this hat made of? Do you keep snacks in there?" she teased, laughing at her own joke. A young boy in the crowd whispered to his father, "Why is she being so rude?" His father frowned, shaking his head in quiet disapproval. The woman noticed the attention she was getting and decided to take things up a notch. She reached out, almost touching the guard's bearskin hat. "Let's see if you're as tough as you look," she said with a smug grin. The guard didn't move, his silence speaking volumes. The crowd, however, was growing restless. A few people muttered under their breath, their irritation palpable. Suddenly, the woman stepped back, holding up her phone triumphantly. "Everyone, watch this!" she exclaimed. But as she turned, she tripped over the uneven cobblestone, her phone flying out of her hand and crashing to the ground. The screen shattered into pieces, and the crowd gasped. The woman's confident demeanor crumbled as she scrambled to pick up the remains of her phone. Her face flushed with embarrassment, but she quickly turned her frustration on the guard. "This is your fault," she snapped, pointing at him. "If you'd just said something or moved, I wouldn't have tripped." The guard remained still, his expression unchanged. His unwavering silence only seemed to amplify the absurdity of her accusation. At that moment, a little girl stepped forward from the crowd. She bent down and carefully picked up the shattered phone. "Here," she said softly, holding it out to the woman. The woman snatched it from her hands without so much as a thank you. The crowd's disapproval reached a boiling point. "You've crossed the line, literally and figuratively," an elderly man called out. Others nodded, their murmurs growing louder. Finally, the guard broke his silence. Taking a deliberate step forward, he said in a firm, measured tone, "Ma'am, you are in violation of protocol. Please step back immediately." The crowd erupted in applause. The guard's calm and commanding response was more powerful than any angry outburst could have been. The woman's face turned crimson as she realized the crowd was no longer on her side. Palace security arrived swiftly, their presence adding to the woman's humiliation. As they escorted her away, she sputtered protests about her rights as a tourist, but her words fell on deaf ears. The crowd cheered her departure, their applause echoing through the palace courtyard. Footage of the incident quickly spread across social media. Comments flooded in, praising the guard for his professionalism. "This is how you handle disrespect, with dignity and grace." She thought she could humiliate him, but she ended up embarrassing herself instead. Later that day, the guard's commanding officer approached him. "You represented us well today," he said, nodding with approval. "Your composure was exemplary." Back at his post, the guard resumed his stoic stance. A little boy approached with his mother, holding a small British flag. He waved it shyly, and the guard, without breaking protocol, gave a subtle nod. The gesture brought smiles to the boy and those around him. That day, Buckingham Palace wasn't just a tourist attraction. It became a reminder of the importance of respect and tradition. The guard's silence had spoken louder than any words, teaching a lesson that the woman, and everyone else, would never forget.